It'll be 6 years since I have been playing Escape from Tarkov this coming September. That's a long time to be playing one game. A few others that come to mind in terms of this amount of time played are League of Legends and For Honor, although for the latter, not so much anymore. I still have fond memories of my time with old Tarkov, what the UI looked like, how alien everything was for me, and what I was really getting myself into. It was a whole different beast back then. Nowadays, the experience and knowledge I have accumulated throughout the years has led to many more positive experiences with the game, despite all the things that have been and currently still wrong with it at the time. I remember being new to Tarkov, what that felt like, not knowing what was going on at all, what it really meant to die and lose your stuff, how the medical systems worked, the layouts of the maps. I was completely overwhelmed with the game, but I was entranced by the guns and how modifiable they were, especially with what I was seeing online from other players. I wanted to be a part of that as well. Hell, I've mentioned this before, but I thought at the beginning the suppressed TT was the coolest gun in the entire game for a while, and then I thought the MPX was that, and then finally the M4. Crazy how far things have come, but that was 2017. The game was drastically different back then. Now in 2023, I can't imagine what it's like being a new player to Escape from Tarkov, but I can only guess that it's very brutal. With everything that has been added to the game over the years, in some regards, Tarkov has gotten easier, but only if you have the knowledge to back up those additions. For example, the secret Jaeger stashes are a fantastic way to get loot and potentially farm money if you're low on funds. But as a new player, I can't see that being a top priority at all. When it comes to learning Tarkov, there isn't a one-size-fits-all formula for getting the hang of it. Everyone will want to grasp its different mechanics in a way that makes sense to them. Some might want to learn the map first and foremost. Others want to know how to maintain their character's health and status throughout the entire raid. There's a lot of ways of tackling the beast that is learning Tarkov, and I can very easily see people becoming overwhelmed with all the little intricacies of this game. How, if you don't have room in your rig for a magazine when you reload, it gets dropped on the ground. Or how after you heal a light or heavy bleed, if you sprint around the map too much, those fresh wounds can reopen into more light bleeds. Tarkov wasn't lying in its description when it had light RPG elements in it, and I'm not just referring to the soft skills. And when we haven't even talked about being in raid and having to engage in gunfights with the AI, and especially other players. Fighting in Tarkov is difficult, plain and simple. Even with the amount of experience and time I have, I still make tons and tons of mistakes when engaging others. I am not and never will be consistently good at this game. I have my moments where I make all the right decisions and my aim is on point, but that's the exception, not the rule. I remember throwing myself into Factory repeatedly way back in the day to try and get better at fighting other PMCs, and I saw mixed results. There are just so many visceral elements that go into a Tarkov firefight. That is, of course, assuming it doesn't end in a single shot. The audio you hear, where you are in relation to whatever map you're currently playing on, what weapon you have versus what they have. It's a lot to take in. Things can go from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye, and I wouldn't expect a new player not to panic at the sound of gunfire, especially if it's aimed at them. And while it's totally doable to coach someone through a fight, I remember the nerves getting the better of me on multiple occasions. Hell, they still do. When I know someone is taking shots and I begin creeping up on them, trying to catch them by surprise, my heart always begins to race. Even when I try to go all gung-ho and push aggressively, I always get nervous that I'll whiff that vital shot and just end up head-eyes by the guy I was trying to take out. The most important thing about Tarkov fights is being able to keep your cool and not panic, because once you begin to panic, any semblance of game knowledge, knowing the controls and keybinds, and everything else goes right out the window for a new player. Now, you might get the occasional jump scare, and that's okay. Tarkov functions as a part horror game as well. I mean, it's so versed, I know. But when you're in dorms trying to get your pocket watch, and you hear someone else enter the building, for the longest time that scared me, because like a lot of us when we were new, we're just trying to get our quests done. However, with the addition of VoIP, those kinds of situations are a lot less scary, because most of the time now, you can talk your way through a rough situation. It's hard to look back at times when the game didn't allow you to communicate properly with one another and having to use the broken-ass in-game voice lines. which, while sometimes immersive and tactical, was a complete mess because of how it's set up and how many lines you can bind to have it come out quickly. Either way, gunfights in Tarkov are scary when you start, and are usually avoided as much as possible. But when you do need to face another player, it's best to just take a deep breath and try your best. Who knows, you might end up surprising yourself. Besides shooting, Tarkov has so many other systems at play whilst you're in raid. The medical system is probably the one that gets people killed the most and they don't even realize it. I know that was the case for me back in the day, not knowing what each piece of medical equipment did, how to stop bleeds and heal limbs, and losing body parts and having to limp all the way to extract, wherever that was, because I didn't know how to get out of the maps. To emphasize this, I remember thinking that the only way to leave factory was to have the factory key on you, so I farmed its location for weeks with no avail. But healing was always problematic because running nothing but a hatchet and trying to make things happen was difficult. Slowly bleeding out and then having to walk slowly across a map was definitely not a pleasant experience, but back then it almost felt like everyone had to experience it once before they buckled down and actually learned the mechanics. Nowadays there are tons of healing items, stimulants, and even CMS kits to fix zeroed out body parts so you can stay in the raid for longer. Honestly, the CMS was easily one of the best medical items ever added by BSG, because when you lost a stomach back then, your raid was pretty much over as your hydration ticked down right in front of you. But now, you just use a kit and you're good to go back into the fight. Ammunition is another problem area for new players, because when you see 18 different ammos for the same gun, you will quickly scratch your head and ask what their differences are. Plenty of new players have fallen prey to 545 PRS ammo, and it hurts to see that in a gun from a level 3 PMC. Granted, options are limited at the vendors for ammo, but in general they have more than they ever have previously. Even with all these options, the number of items is daunting, and you don't know what attachments go on what guns, and how to just get a simple red dot on your busted up AK. It's not just drag and drop, but sights need rails and suppressors need muzzle attachments. It gets messy very quickly. One of the greatest upsides to becoming a new player in 2023 is the existence of the wiki and all the guides that already exist online. The game is so much larger now than it was years ago, where information was scarce and people weren't always 100% sure of where items spawned and what their rates were. At least now, new players can look at the wiki for almost any question they may have regarding the game, its quests, bullet charts, armors, etc. It's a fantastic resource for learning the game, but that begs the question: shouldn't a lot of this information just be in the game? And of course, there is a very strong argument for that answer to the question to be yes. I see why PSG wouldn't want it in the game, but honestly, at this point, just do it. The game is large enough that people just want to know, you know? Learning the maps can also be a terrifying experience, even with one pulled up on a second monitor or another tab. You may see the layout, see where the extracts are across it, but if you don't know your own relative location on all these places, it doesn't mean that much. Finding a landmark on the map and then trying to triangulate your own location and orientation is something, again, I feel as though everyone ends up doing at least once. Looking back, it's kind of a funny experience that a lot of us might have shared all of these moments at one point. So I take solace in the idea that we were all frantically switching off the game to look at the map, figure out some kind of marking, and then switch back into the game to try and find it. And sometimes that alt-tab out gets us killed. At least me, on multiple occasions, if I'm being honest. Tarkov is a complex beast, and for new players it has only gotten harder. The game is punishing, ambiguous with its information at best, and outright doesn't tell you at its worst. Tarkov may be one of the hardest FPS games to try and take seriously if you're a first-timer. Granted, there are tons of resources out there nowadays to assist all those who want to experience what Tarkov can bring to the table when everything is working as intended. So, if you are new to the game, I would say to really give it your all. Don't get discouraged if you die, or some weird bugs or glitches happen. You can do this. This game with fresh eyes is incredible and worth the time investment. And with what potentially looms on the horizon for new content, I'd say stick around. You'll be a veteran of the game before you know it. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Please leave your own newbie experiences down in the comment section below, and be sure to subscribe for more videos about trips down memory lane. I hope to see you in future ones.